Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
All right, so Lewis is not here today. We were hoping he would be back in today, so it did not happen, obviously. The internet installation is, I am told, happening as we speak or within the next couple of hours. I really, really want to discuss the reaction from our members about what to do with the longer interviews that we would like to start doing in Boston, as well as the investigative pieces. Yesterday I said, do we do every once in a while an entire show is a long interview? Do we space the interviews out into, or divide them into multiple pieces? What do we do? I had no idea that our members would react so strongly to this question. We'll read specific emails tomorrow with Lewis. A lot of people emailed me saying, David, I depend on your show to get caught up on news stories of the day. So even though I could go elsewhere, I would much rather you continue doing news stories every show instead of one day just having a really long interview. Other people said, I like the idea of every once in a while, instead of news stories, we have a different style of show where the entire show is a long, in-depth interview. Others said they like the idea of the long interviews, but they wouldn't like to see it go more than 2 segments. And they said, well, maybe what you could do is you take out either audience questions or voicemails on the day that you have the long interview. Maybe the first half of the show is news. The first 2 segments are news. And then the second 2 segments are the long interview. And then another popular idea was to do it the Daily Show way, which is after X number of minutes, in our case, maybe 10 minutes, we say, great conversation. We're continuing the full conversation on YouTube, and sort of just stop the interview then, which we've sometimes already done. So a lot of different ideas from people, and also a bunch of people emailing and starting to ask when the 2016 calendar is going to be available. I would love for it to be available sort of early in November. Last year, when we did the 2015 Patriot Mail calendar, which, by the way, I happen to have right here, and this is the last, I guess we could call it, unsold copy of the 2015 calendar. We started offering this one, I believe it was around the beginning of November, and I would like to do the same thing this year. We are still waiting on that final image. I'm going to tell Lewis tomorrow that we still have 1 slot available. Maybe he could come up with something. He did something for last year's calendar, but the best thing you can do to get this calendar thing en route would be to help us out with that final Patriot Mail themed image, 8.5 by 11 inches in landscape orientation in 300 dot per inch resolution. Those are the only requirements. Your take on Patriot Mail, whatever it may be, and then we will make those available. Also being asked about the cost. Last year, the way we did it was, if you are not a member, we did a membership special where you could get a membership plus the calendar for some discounted rate. For members, we offered 2 options. Option 1 was to just buy the calendar at cost. So I think last year, I don't even remember what the numbers were, but we just figured out what is the cost of production plus shipping, and members can buy the calendar at cost. Or we would offer you the same membership special that was available to new members if you wanted to sort of cancel your existing membership and switch over to it. We'll probably do the exact same thing. It seemed to do really well last year. Last year, I think we sold 125 calendars all told. I would love to do 200 this year. I mean, our audience has grown significantly over the last year, so it might be possible, but certainly 150 at minimum. But we will have more news on that as soon as we have it. And then an update from the studio. As I mentioned, we were supposed to be able to move into our Boston studio last week. That didn't happen. I was told we would be able to move in at the end of this week. Lewis and I visited the space last Friday, and we were stunned, taken aback that very little progress had been made. The walls had been framed out, but no drywall up on the walls. The electricity was only roughed in. There were no covers, or it's basically at that stage. And the problem, we were told, is they are waiting on an inspection from the city of Boston, which would allow them to start sealing up the private spaces and move forward. Yesterday, I had a conversation with the landlord. He said, unfortunately, they still do not have that permit. But the good news is that he believes they have 4 to 5 working days of work to do once they get that permit, and that they will be working nights and weekends once they have that. And I said, we really need to be in here. Do you think we're going to be able to get in by, I think I said October 24th, because that's sort of the end of the week after we get back from Vegas, which would be sort of the very end in my mind of when we could really stand to move in time-wise. And he said, listen, I can't guarantee anything, but if you can't move in by October 24th, I'm going to have far bigger problems, because we've got half a dozen clients who are waiting to move into that same space, that same floor rather, obviously not our space, by October 15th. So what else can I say? That's what we have. Apparently, the entire inspection department in Boston is quite a bureaucracy. And, it's difficult when it's completely beyond my control, because all I can do is check in daily and try to apply as much pressure. But ultimately, it seems like they are hamstrung by the city of Boston. In the meantime, though, we are working on a new news desk, which is going to be kind of like a cool looking black topped industrial metal type desk, which is going to be our news desk. The guy who's building it sent me a draft yesterday, and it looks fantastic, a draft image. The next step is to get the materials and start building it. There might be the upside to the studio taking a little longer, and I'm really digging here for a silver lining, as you can probably tell, is we were likely going to need a sort of very lame temporary news desk on our set until this custom one was built. But if it takes long enough to get into the studio, maybe the great new desk will be built. But in any case, I'll keep everybody posted on that, and more information. Lewis, I'm told, will be back tomorrow. We will talk about Vegas next week. We'll talk about the Democratic debate, the plan for broadcasting from Vegas, all of that stuff on tomorrow's bonus show. Speak to you then.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.